Welcome to today's video. We're talking about BMW Z3 suspension, and this is going to be a nice little guide for springs and shocks, simple stuff all the way from OEM to coilovers and everything in between. Before I jump in, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel, who's left their comments, who've left likes. It really helps out. It's great seeing people talking about their Z3s, and let's continue it because, well, it's great. So on to today's video. Now, one of the most popular modifications for any car owner is suspension. There's a lot of information out there and it's easy to get lost and confused. I know I've been drowning in this information to make this video. We'll go through it in steps of kind of like complexity. You know how you have stage 1 engine tuning to stage 5? We're going to do the same with suspension. I'll put some time codes in so that you can skip between the different stages if you already know what you're looking for and just need maybe some recommendation. So stage 1 is to replace your current stuff with new OEM specification stuff. So what is OEM? It's original equipment manufacturer. It's what your car manufacturer used originally. BMW made the car and it's great, so why change it? If you're happy with how the car handles, if you're happy with the comfort of the ride and how it feels on bumpy roads, or if you're happy with the performance on it, then you don't need to do anything to it. So why should you stick to OEM? The first reason is that it's often cheaper than alternatives, not just from a parts and labour point of view, but also from a longevity point of view. If you lower a car, it can change the geometry of everything. You get more tyre wear, your other suspension components like bushes can wear faster as well, meaning that it's more labour if you're paying someone to do it and more money on parts. So going OEM means that everything stays as it should and you shouldn't have to worry about excess wear for other things. Reason number 2 is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Z3 did come out of the factory as a good handling car, and if you're one of those people that enjoys the open top cruises and the odd spirited dash down a country lane, then there's no reason to change anything or lower the car. Just stick with OEM and you will get a performance upgrade because, well, newer parts. So why shouldn't you stick to OEM? Now, as good as BMW made the Z3 from the factory, there are always improvements to be had, and the Z3 can definitely benefit from some suspension upgrades. But if you're not looking for any massive performance jumps, then what are some of the recommended OEM parts for you to get? Now, you can get these parts from Eurocar Parts, Autodoc, or any other friendly parts retailer. For springs, you have to order for your specific variant of car. For example, if you have a 1.9 4-cylinder Z3, you can't order the 6-cylinder springs because those springs are harder to deal with the heavier front end, so it'll actually push your car up and it won't be balanced correctly. Now, most of these sites will have a specific car filter, so just put your make, model and year and engine model in it. If you know your reg number, then it'll do it automatically. But here are some suggestions for OEM parts. Now, springs, you've got Monroe. Personally, had them on my Z3 and couldn't really feel that much of a difference. Yes, they feel a little bit harsher, but I think that's more because they were new and I had a snapped spring when I changed them. Bilstein and Eibach are also great brands. They live for suspension, so you can't go wrong with their OEM specification part. So the shock absorbers, the same as above. You can get your model, variant, all that good stuff. And Sachs shocks are the BMW chosen brand and they're still available for your Z3. Important to note that it's good practice to change your left and right at the same time so you don't have uneven wear and uneven balance on the car. And it's also a great time to grab any rubber pads that may be a bit ripped up or very grotty and change them out for new ones. If you have any recommendations for any of these stages, then please drop them in the comment section below so that other people can learn and ask questions as well. So if you know that you don't want to go OEM, you want to make a change to your car, then what is the next stage? The next stage is stage 2, and it's lowering springs. So what are lowering springs? These are coil springs that are shorter than the OEM ones, which means that when the car sits on them, it sits lower to the ground. And hence they have lowered your car and they are lowering springs. Make sense? Good. So now why should you get lowering springs for your Z3? Well, first of all, you get some better handling. This is just physics. Your car is lower, you get lower center of gravity. If you want a proper explanation, then watch this video after this one, of course. But this guy explains it brilliantly. Another reason is just for the looks. Now, the Z3 does ride a little bit high from factory. It does have a pretty chunky wheel arch gap that can be lessened with lowering springs. Lowering springs will close the gap and make the car look more aggressive. These are also a cheaper modification alternative than suspension kits and coilovers, which we'll talk about later on. So why should you not get lowering springs? Well, the ride can be harsher, which means that you'll feel all the bumps in the road. Now, the severity of how much you'll feel the bumps depends on how stiff the springs are. And if the springs are too stiff, then your spine will need a lot of work after every drive. But if you get good quality lowering springs, then this isn't an issue. There are plenty of people who have lowered their cars and it's still comfortable for daily driving, but also giving them that handling benefit that they're looking for. If you go too low, then you can't get over speed bumps. I mean, we've all seen it, those people who have slammed their car to the ground and they need wooden planks to get over stuff, or they just scrape their bumper every time. Beware of how much you are dropping your Z3. 30mm is the most common one, and you'll see that in the recommendations that I show later. If you have massive alloys, 19-inch, 20-inch, please don't ever, please no, it doesn't suit the car, it really doesn't. With these size alloys, you won't be able to lower the car as much as someone on normal 17 or 16-inch alloys. Just because the tyre height as well can have an effect on how far you can lower the car. Get a measuring tape, calculate how far you can actually drop it, because you don't want to slam your wheel arch onto the top of your tyre. So if you are decided on lowering springs and they are the Z3 suspension modification for you, which ones do you get? H&R lowering springs, they drop your car by 30mm. IBAC lowering springs drop your car by 30mm, and both have stunning reviews from the Z3 owners. There of course are other brands out there, some have cheaper stuff, but like I said, if you go too cheap, then the ride will probably be compromised, it won't be as comfortable. These two are good all-around stuff for your car. Important note is that when you change your lowering springs and keeping the shocks the same, it can cause the shocks to wear faster. This might not be an issue if you're going to change them in the near future, but if you're planning to long-term these lowering springs, you may find that your shocks wear out faster. There are plenty of people who run lowered springs and stock shocks that don't have any problems at all, but obviously it depends on how much you drive and how you drive it, so keep that in mind. And if lowering springs are not for you, you need something a little more, Stage 3 is for you, and that is suspension kits. Now this is a package deal for all your suspension needs. Well, kind of. It's a kit that consists of the springs and shocks, and the main point is that the springs and shocks are matched, so you don't have the issue that you have with lowering springs and stock. So why should you get a suspension kit? As mentioned above, matches all the parts, it's built for the car, and that's going to lead to better balancing, better performance, and longer longevity. You also get all the benefits of lowering the car that you do with lowering springs, and that's probably in the video that I put somewhere. So why shouldn't you get a suspension kit? Well, they're pretty expensive compared to lowering springs, and that's because you have 4 extra parts in the shock absorbers. But again, you get what you pay for, and some of these are really good and will help the car perform better by no end. Another negative of suspension kits is that there's no adjustability. Just like lowering springs, what you get is what it's set at. You can't change the ride height, you can't change the stiffness, you can't really change anything. And if you're looking for something that you can dial in and fine tune, then these aren't for you. But if you are looking for a static drop and you're going to be happy with how the car sits and performs, then by all means get a suspension kit. Another disadvantage is that it's not a massive cost jump to coilovers, and those do have adjustability. The most basic ones have the height adjustability, so you can fine tune it for your needs. And if you just want that drop with the matching coil springs and the matching shock absorbers, which ones do you get? I'm sure that there are people watching this that are screaming this recommendation out because it is everywhere. Anytime someone posts a question about suspension and which one to get, this comes up every single time. It is the Bilstein B12 Pro Kit suspension kit with B8 shock absorbers. Literally everyone has these. Everyone loves them, and it lowers the car, increases the performance of the handling, but also gives you a soft enough ride that you can daily drive it. It is a perfect mix, pretty much. There are other brands and makes and stuff out there that you can get that other people will recommend, but this one comes the highest recommended for suspension kits for a Z3. Now you may be sat there thinking, you know, this suspension kit is great and all, but I want to be able to change it and fine tune it because I think I know what I'm doing with suspension. Then stage 4 is what you're looking for. That's so bad. And stage 4 is coilovers. So if you're looking for detailed fine tuning or just being able to adjust stuff to your preference, and these are the suspension upgrades for you. There's lots of stuff to adjust, and I will drop a video somewhere so that you can actually watch in detail what coilovers are all about, because Engineering Explained definitely explains it better than I can. So why should you get coilovers for your Z3? Adjustability. Most, if not all, give you ride height adjustment, and as you go up in how much they cost and the complexity of them, you get dampening adjustment, which is your shock absorber adjustment, rebound adjustment, which is the shock coming back up adjustment. Some also come with camber plates, which is this adjustment. So these are perfect for tracking, racing, or if you want to slam your car and do crazy camber stuff to it. Please don't, please. Another advantage is that you get all the performance benefits of lowering your car, but with the added benefits of being able to dial in the different settings for the different characteristics of your suspension components. So why shouldn't you get coilovers? Well, they're pretty damn expensive. A good set will put you back around £800, and they can go up to £1,500. Unless you're going crazy, then, you know, 3,000, 4,000, sky's the limit. Also, cheap coilovers may not give you all the adjustability you're looking for, so you will have to dig a little bit further into your pocket for exactly what you're looking for, in which case it's a good investment. Another reason is that for a Z3 you do not get true coilovers. So the Z3 has E30 rear suspension, which means that the spring is separate to the shock absorber. That's how they sit in the car, unlike the front, which has the spring and the shock absorber as one kind of piece. Now you can get a kit that converts your Z3 rear suspension so you can have coilovers, and we'll jump into that for the recommendations. And now onto the recommendations for coilovers for your BMW Z3. We're here. The KW series, you've got 1, 2 and 3. 1 gives you height adjustment, 2 gives you dampening adjustment, and 3 gives you rebound adjustment. And the other stuff that came before it. It wouldn't make sense just to have rebound adjustment on coilovers now, would it? Anyway, so these are a pretty good brand. People do like them. KW actually make the ST suspension as their more budget-friendly stuff, so KW, very recommended. You also have BC Racing, and similar to KW, they've got a wide range of stuff that gives you different amount of adjustability and also lets you choose the spring rate. Now, if you want to learn about spring rates, then go learn from someone who can explain it better than I can after this video. But these are also very highly recommended, and a lot of people do run them on their Z3s. Then Gaz coilovers. These have a good range from fast road and track to proper racing, and Gaz coilovers are the ones that you can turn into true coilovers at the rear. You do need to buy an additional rear top mount so that you can fit them, but the Z3s that ran in the Z car series had them, and well, they perform pretty well. Most people run with either of these, but there are obviously tons of different brands. In America, you've got like Fortune Auto, and that's the only one I can call from the top of my head. So let's jump into stage 5, which is the fun stage. That's racing, and I don't know. I I don't know enough about this topic to actually give you any good information, and I'm not going to give you a bunch of bullshit to go with. It comes down to a lot of different factors. You know, you've got the weight of your car, you've got, does it have aero, you've got the type of racing that you're doing hill climbing, circuit, drifting. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. And because racing is so finely tuned, you have to make sure that that suspension is right for your specific needs. So this is where I would recommend joining a forum that is specifically about racing Z3s, or joining a Facebook group, so you can ask those questions. But if you do want a starting point, a recommendation, Gaz Racing Coilovers, they were on the Z3s, as I said, for the Z car series, and they ran pretty damn well. And hopefully as we learn more about this, we can then give you more value with another video in the future. So that is it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it helped you out as well. If it did, then please leave a like down below. If you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. As I said, it's been amazing, the response that I've had recently with the other Z3 videos, and I can't thank you guys enough. And I will see you in the next video.